Hello, everyone. Today, we're very proud to present you the progress we made with the Keptn Lifecycle Controller in the version 0.2.0, which is mainly focused on telemetry data in the Lifecycle Controller. Giovanni and Florian will show you what we did in this release. And so the first question to Florian, what do you like most about the Keptn Lifecycle Controller at the moment?
Well, that's a tough question because there are so many things, but right now I'm very excited about open telemetry being a first-class citizen, therefore us being able to provide great possibilities in terms of tracing and monitoring. And I'm looking forward to demonstrate that today.
This looks very nice. And Giovanni, why do you think telemetry data is important in the Lifecycle Controller?
Because it provides you with the possibility to observe what's going on behind the scene into your deployment, since Kubernetes is a black box magic that deploys your application. And also with metrics, you can track frequency and velocity of your deployments.
This sounds also very great. So Giovanni, what will we see today?
So I want to build on top of your last video where you show how the Lifecycle Controller works. So we'll see a manifest is being applied, the Lifecycle Controller takes place, runs some pre-deployment tasks, then the deployment takes place, and afterwards some post-deployments. And all of this will be monitored by metrics and traces from OpenTelemetry. Then this data will be ingested into Jaeger to see the spans relationship and also the metrics into Prometheus, so we can have some nice dashboards afterwards. But I would like to hand over to Florian to show the cool stuff.
All right, thank you, Giovanni. Yeah, so first of all, if you decide to try all this out yourself after watching this video, the installation of the lifecycle operator is very easy. So you basically just need to apply two manifests. One is for the cert manager, which is a requirement for the operator to run. And then the second one is the manifest for the operator and our scheduler implementation. And then if you would like to follow the demo and try it out yourself, we have provided a tutorial for that in our repository. So all you need to do is to clone the repository, change into the directory that we have listed here, so into this observability directory, and execute the make install. We have also provided an extensive README there where you can read about the general concepts used in this tutorial and how everything works together, right? Okay, with that being said, let's jump into the actual demo. So what do we have here? On my screen, you should now see the Lens Kubernetes IDE, and I'm in our single service directory where we have the following files. So we have, first of all, our deployment YAML containing the deployment that we would like to have managed by the workload controller, by the lifecycle controller. And then we have a deployment task, which should be executed. Let's just quickly recap and see what's in this deployment. So here we deploy a simple service with the name test. And here you see the Keptn annotations. So it's part of the Waiter workload. It's going to be deployed in version 0.2. It's part of the Waiter app. And the post-deployment task that should be executed is the pre-deployment hello task. All right. And at the top part of my screen, you see the Keptn workload instances that will be created by the Lifecycle Controller. So far, there is nothing, but now I'm gonna apply everything that I have in this directory. And very soon you should see a workload instance popping up here. See, here it already is. So it's our Waiter workload of the Waiter app in version 2.0. And we can already see that the pre-deployment phase is succeeded. Now it's waiting for the deployment to be finished. So if we switch to the pods here, you should see the test pod for the deployment being in the pending state, and very soon it should be up and running. So now the init container seems to be ready, and soon the actual app should be running in our namespace. Yeah, there it is. And as you can see here, now our post-deployment check did kick in. So now we have the pod running that should execute the post-deployment check, right? All right. This is the example that you might have already seen in one of Thomas's earlier recordings, but now let's jump into the observability part of all this. So first of all, we are going to inspect the traces that we have generated during this deployment. So you should now see my Jaeger UI, and hopefully the port forwarding is still working. So now I will select the Keptn Lifecycle Operator service, which is the resource that the operator is registered at. And now we're going to fetch the traces from the last 15 minutes. And as you can see here, we already have some results. So the entry point in this case is the webhook part, because the webhook of the Lifecycle Controller is registered to be called for all pods that should be deployed in that namespace. And this one is our initial entry point. So you can see here 21 spans. And yeah, so what this will now allow you to do is to get observability and better comprehend of how all the components in the Lifecycle Controller do work together. So as I said, we have the annotate pod span that is the root for this complete workflow. Then the webhook will create the workload. And as you can see here, this is all nicely tagged with the name of the app, the version of the deployment, the name of the workload, and so on. And this will give you better observability of what's going on. Also, during the workflow, you might see some error. But first of all, the nice thing about operators is that even though in one of the reconcile loops, there might be some unexpected error, it will pick all this up in the next iteration, and eventually the whole system should go into the desired state as it indeed did, as we earlier saw. And yeah, also if there is some error, this is exactly what introducing traces is all about as well, because it will make it much easier for you to see what might have gone wrong during one of your deployments. All right, so that's the tracing part, but we're not completely done yet, because we also promised you some metrics, because the lifecycle operator sends all traces and metrics to the open telemetry collector, which can then be used as a central data point for all your observability data. And that means that in addition to the traces that we just talked about, we will also get some metrics that can be ingested by Prometheus, for example. So as you can see here on this metrics endpoint, we have several metrics that you can make use of, like the active deployment counter or the deployment duration histogram, the active task counter, and then also metrics for finished deployments and finished tasks. But as you can see, this is a little bit hard to read. So why don't we just go into Grafana, where we can nicely import and visualize these metrics that we see here. So let's do that and adjust the time frame. So what you see here is a dashboard containing time series for these metrics that I just talked about. So first of all, we have the active tasks. So currently, we do not see anything here, and that might be because the granularity is a little bit too rough in that case, because the post-deployment task was finished very soon. But what you can still see here is that the number of finished tasks has increased by 1. So earlier, before starting the demo, I tried it out and already had 2 completed tasks before I started the demo. So that would explain this initial value of 2. But during the course of the demo, this was increased to 1. And the same kind of metrics we also have for the deployments. So deployment being the test deployment that we showed you earlier. And here the granularity was small enough because the complete workflow took a couple of seconds with all the pre and post deployment checks being reconciled and the pod being scheduled. And as you can see here, during the time that the deployment took, the number of the active deployments in the running state was increased to 1. And once that's finished, went back down to 0. So this is a nice metric to view the activity that's currently going on in your cluster. And eventually, once that is finished, the number of finished deployments has increased to 3 in that case, because I tried it out earlier, as I said. All right, and I hope this gave you a nice overview of how you can use all this telemetry data in your cluster. So what we have seen the use of open telemetry data, and maybe to highlight this again, even though we have shown you how to make use of Jaeger, Prometheus, and Grafana in this case, you're not necessarily bound to make only use of these particular tools, but this can nicely be integrated with any other tools that support open telemetry integration, because we send all the observability data of the lifecycle controller to the open telemetry collector, which can then act as a central point of data. All right, and yeah, as we have shown you with, for example, Grafana dashboards, you have a quick and easy way of visualizing the current activity in your cluster, and, for example, have a good impression of the frequency and the velocity of your deployments. And with that, I would like to hand back over to Thomas.
Okay, so very nice thing, very cool features we have implemented there, and I hope we will get some more things and dashboards out in the future. So regarding the lifecycle controller, we often hear some kind of questions what the lifecycle controller is about and why we are doing this and how this compares to other tools. So we got 2 questions in the last week, and one of them was, how can the lifecycle controller can be used with Keptn? So who of you both wants to take this over?
Yeah, I would like to take that. So that's a great question. And of course, we kept that in the back of our minds from the beginning when we started to develop the lifecycle controller. And one way to do this would be to make use of the task definitions that Thomas already showed you in one of the earlier recordings, because those are very flexible and easy to set up, because provides a convenient way of executing Node.js scripts. And within such a script, you could easily make use of the Keptn API in order to trigger any sequence pretty much. So for example, in the post-deployment checks, you could trigger a Keptn evaluation sequence and then immediately make use of all the quality gate and evaluation capabilities that Keptn provides.
Okay, thank you, thank you, Florian. And Giovanni, I think you dealt a bit with how this could work with Argo CD. Could you give us more insights into this?
Yes, we work hard to make everything around the Lifecycle Controller to be working automatically with any possible tool that you might use in your deployment. Could be Argo CD, can be Flux, can be directly an Helm install, a kubectl apply, as we see in the demo. The cool thing of the Keptn Lifecycle Controller is tool agnostic on which tool is carrying your deployment. So the Lifecycle Controller can take place before Argo kicks in and try to really deploy your application, running some pre-deployment tasks. Also, after the deployment is done by Argo, we can then trigger the Keptn post-deployment tasks for that.
Okay, thank you also for this. Yes, thanks for joining you both here at today's Maintainer Track talk. Just for you sitting in front of your computer and want to get in touch with us, and I'm sure you will, there are some things you could do to get in touch with us. So at first, everything you saw here is in our repository in the Keptn sandbox of the Lifecycle Controller prototype. And there is a working group which is discussing all of these things, such as how should an application lifecycle look like in a cloud-native environment. And there is also a repository for this. You can also share your thoughts regarding all of this. And also tell us what you would like to see in the Lifecycle Controller. Therefore, we have a Slack channel in the CNCF Slack, which is called Keptn App Lifecycle Working Group. And last but not least, you can meet all of us also on Slack and discuss things or features with us in this Slack channel, which is also in the CNCF Slack and called Keptn Lifecycle Controller Development. And as in every open source project, we are very, very happy to have you as a contributor and see your pull requests, see your comments, and have you in our community. And I'm sure every one of us is very happy to accept pull requests. So feel free to reach out to us. With this, I thank you for your time and having us here, and hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.